Planet X and the ninth planet. Astronomers say a Neptune-sized planet does lurk at the border of our solar system. Now, is this time for a new planet to be discovered? Neptune was discovered by John Herschel in July of 1830. So that's just not that far back. Could it be a time for a new discovery? The solar system appears to have a new ninth planet, and recently 2 scientists announced evidence that a body nearly the size of Neptune, that is about 10 times the size of our Earth, it's not yet been seen, but something is out there, orbits the sun every 15,000 years, they say, and during the solar system's infancy, 4.5 billion years ago, they said, this giant planet was knocked out of the planet-forming region that was near our sun. Slowed by gas, the planet settled into a distant elliptical orbit where it still lurks today. The claim is the strongest yet in the centuries-long search for Planet X, Planet 9, beyond Neptune. The quest has been plagued by far-fetched claims that even outright quackery, but now the new evidence comes from a pair of respected planetary scientists from Caltech, Konstantin Batygin and Mike Brown, of California Institute of Technology, Caltech in Pasadena, California, who prepared for the inevitable skepticism with detailed analysis of the orbits of other distant objects and months of computer simulations. Brown says, if you say, we have evidence for Planet X, almost any astronomer will say, this again, these guys are clearly crazy. I would too, Brown said, but this is way different. This is different because this time we're right, he said. Outside scientists say their calculations stack up and express a mixture of caution and excitement about the result. I could not imagine a bigger deal if, and of course that's a bold-faced if it turns out to be right, said Gregory Lawlin. He's planetary scientist at the University of California, UC Santa Cruz. What's thrilling about it is the planet is detectable. Batygin and Brown inferred its presence from the peculiar clustering of 6 previously known objects that orbit beyond Neptune. They say there's only a 0.007% chance, or about 1 in 15,000, that the clustering could be a coincidence. So it's not a coincidence, something causing these things to cluster. Instead, they say a planet with a mass of 10 Earths has shepherded the 6 objects into their strange elliptical orbits, tilted out of the plane of our solar system. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. The orbit of the inferred planet is similarly tilted, as well as stretched to distances that will explode previous conceptions of the solar system. Its closest approach to the Sun is 7 times farther than Neptune, or 200 astronomical units, AUs. An AU is a distance between the Earth and the Sun, about 93 million miles or 150 million kilometers. And Planet X could roam as far as 600 to 1,200 AUs, which is well beyond the Kuiper Belt, the region of small icy worlds that begins at Neptune's edge around 30 AUs. So if Planet X is out there, Brown and Batygin say astronomers ought to find more objects in telltale orbits shaped by the pull of the hidden giant. But Brown knows that no one will really believe in the discovery until Planet X, or Planet 9 itself, appears within a telescope viewfinder. Until there's a direct detection, it's a hypothesis, even a potentially very good hypothesis, he says. The team has time on the one large telescope in Hawaii that's suited for the research, and they hope other astronomers will join the hunt. Now, Batygin and Brown published the result in the Astronomical Journal. Alessandro Morbidelli, planetary dynamist and at the Nice Observatory in France, performed the peer review of the paper, In a statement, he said Vatican and Brown made a very solid argument and that he is quite convinced by the existence of a distant planet. And championing a new ninth planet is an ironic role for Brown. He's better known as a planet slayer. His 2005 discovery of Eris, a remote icy world near about the same size as Pluto, revealed that what was seen as the outermost planet was just one of the many worlds in the Kuiper Belt. Astronomers promptly reclassified Pluto as a dwarf planet, a saga Brown recounted in his book, How I Killed Pluto. Now he's joined the centuries-old search for new planets. His method inferring the existence of Planet X, they call it Planet 9, of course, from its ghostly gravitational effects, has a respectable track record. In 1846, for example, a French mathematician, Urbain Le Verrier, predicted the existence of a giant planet from irregularities in the orbit of Uranus. Astronomers at the Berlin Observatory found the new planet Neptune, where it was supposed to be, sparking the media sensation at the time. Remaining hiccups in Uranus orbit led scientists to think that there might be one more planet, and in 1906, Percival Lowell, a wealthy tycoon, began the search for what he called Planet X at his new observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. In 1930, Pluto turned up, but it was far too small to tug meaningfully on Uranus. More than half a century later, new calculations based on measurements by the Voyager spacecraft revealed that the orbits of Uranus and Neptune were just fine on their own. No Planet X was needed. Yet the allure of Planet X persisted. In the 1980s, for example, researchers proposed that an unseen brown dwarf star could cause periodic extinctions on Earth by triggering fusillade of comets coming at us, impacting the Earth. In the 1990s, scientists invoked a Jupiter-sized planet at the solar system's edge to explain the origin of certain oddball comets. And we know that recently I just posted an article a couple of days back. Jupiter is not only shielding Earth, but it's also flinging comets at us. Maybe that's why they sent the Lucy spacecraft out there to examine what's out there around the Jovian planets. Anyway, yes, Jupiter-sized planet at the solar system's edge to explain the origin of certain oddball comets. And recently, researchers claim to have detected the faint microwave glow of an outsized rocky planet some 300 AU away from us, using an array of telescope dishes in Chile at the Atacama Large Millimeter ALMA array. And Brown was one of those skeptics, noting that ALMA's narrow field of view made the chances of finding such an object vanishingly slim. Brown got his first inkling of his current quarry in 2003 when he led a team that found Sedna. It's an object a bit smaller than both Eris and Pluto. Sedna's odd, far-flung orbit made it the most distant known object in the solar system at the time. Its perihelion, or the closest point to the Sun, lay at 76 AU, beyond the Kuiper Belt, and far outside the influence of Neptune's gravity. The implication was clear that something massive, well beyond Neptune, must have pulled Sedna into its distant orbit. That something didn't have to be a planet. Sedna's gravitational nudge could have come from a passing star or from one of the many other stellar nurseries that surrounded the nascent Sun at the time of the solar system's formation. And since then, a handful of other icy objects have turned up in similar orbits. By combining Sedna with 5 other weirdos, Brown says that he has ruled out stars as the unseen influence. Only a planet could explain such a strange orbits. One of his 3 major discoveries, Eris, Sedna, and now potentially Planet X, or Planet 9 as he calls him, Brown says the last is the most sensational. Killing Pluto was fun, finding Sedna was scientifically interesting, he said, but this is head and shoulders above everything else, obviously. Brown and Vatican were nearly beaten to the punch. For years, Sedna was a lone clue to a perturbation from beyond Neptune. Then in 2014, Scott Shepard and Chao Turillo, former graduate student of Brown's, published a paper describing the discovery of VP-113, another object that never comes close to the Sun. Shepard of the Carnegie Institute for Science in Washington, D.C., and Turillo of the Gemini Observatory in Hawaii were well aware of the implications. They began to examine the orbits of the two objects along with 10 other oddballs, and they noticed that at perihelion, all came very near the plane of solar system in which Earth orbits, called the ecliptic. In a paper, Shepard and Turillo pointed out the peculiar clumping and raising the possibility that a distant large planet had herded the objects near the ecliptic, but they did not press the result any further. And later that year at Caltech, Badigan and Brown began discussing the results, plotting the orbits of the distant objects. Badigan says they realized that the pattern that Shepard and Turillo had noticed was only half of the story. Not only were the objects near the ecliptic at perihelia, but their perihelia were physically clustered in space. And for the next year, the duo secretly discussed the pattern and what it meant. It was an easy relationship, and their skills complemented each other. Badigan, a 29-year-old whiz kid computer modeler, went to college at UC Santa Cruz for the beach and the chance to play in the rock band, but he made his mark there by modeling the fate of the solar system over billions of years, showing that in rare cases it was unstable. Mercury may plunge into the Sun or collide with Venus. It was an amazing accomplishment for an undergraduate, says Lawlin, who worked with him at the time. Mercury may plunge into the Sun or collide with Venus. Brown 50 is the observational astronomer with a flair for dramatic discoveries and the confidence to match. He wears shorts and sandals to work, puts his feet up on his desk, and has a breeziness that masks intensity and ambition. He has a program all set to sift for Planet X and data from a major telescope the moment they become publicly available later on. Now, their offices are a few doors down from each other. Badigan says, my couch is nicer, so we tend to talk more in my office. We tend to look more at the data at Mike's. They even became exercise buddies and discussed their ideas while waiting to get in the water at Los Angeles, California triathlon in the spring of 2015. First, they winnowed the dozen objects studied by Shepard and Turillo to the 6 most distant, discovered by 6 different surveys on 6 different telescopes. That made it less likely that the clumping might be due to an observation bias, such as pointing a telescope at a particular part of the sky. Badigan began seeding his solar system models with Planet X's of various sizes and orbits to see which version best explained the object's paths. Some of the computer runs took months. A favored size for Planet X emerged between 5 and 15 Earth masses, as well as a preferred orbit, anti-aligned in space from the 6 small objects so that its perihelion is in the same direction as the 6 objects' aphelion, or farthest point from the Sun. The orbits of the 6 cross that of Planet X, but not when the big bully is nearby and could disrupt them. The final epiphany comes a few months ago, when Badigan's simulation showed that Planet X should also sculpt the orbits of objects that swoop into the solar system from above and below, nearly orthogonal to the ecliptic. Brown says it sparked this memory. I had seen these objects before. It turns out that since 2002, 5 of these highly inclined Kuiper Belt objects have been discovered, and their origins are largely explained. So this is pretty recent. This was like 20 years ago. Not only are they there, but they are in exactly the places we predicted, Brown says. That's astonishing. He says, that's when I realized that this is not just an interesting and good idea. This is actually real. Shepard and who with Turillo had also suspected an unseen planet, said Badigan and Brown took our result to the next level. They got deep into the dynamics, something that Chad and I aren't really good with. That's why I think this is exciting. Others, like planetary scientist Dave Jewett, who discovered the Kuiper Belt, are more cautious. The 0.007% chance that the clustering of the 6 objects is coincidental gives the planet claim a statistical significance of 3.8 sigma, beyond the 3 sigma threshold typically required to be taken seriously. So it's out there. They just have to get a picture of it. It is out there. But short of the 5 sigma, that is something useful in fields like particle physics. That worries Jowett, who has seen plenty of 3 sigma results disappear before. By reducing the dozen objects examined by Shepard and Trujillo to 6 for their analysis, Badigan and Brown weakened their claim, he says. I worry that the finding of a single new object that is not in the group would destroy the whole edifice, Jowett said, who is at UC Los Angeles. He says, it's a game of sticks with only 6 sticks. At first blush, another potential problem comes from NASA's Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer, WISE for short. It's a satellite that completed an all-sky survey looking for the heat of brown dwarfs or giant planets. It ruled out the existence of a Saturn or larger planet as far out as 10,000 AU, according to a 2013 study by Kevin Luhman, astronomer at Pennsylvania State University Park. But Luhman notes that if Planet X is Neptune-sized or smaller, as Badigan and Brown say, WISE would have missed it. He says there is a slim chance of detection in another WISE dataset at longer wavelengths sensitive to cooler radiation, which was collected for 20% of the sky. And Luhman is now analyzing that data. Even if Badigan and Brown could convince other astronomers that Planet X or Planet 9 exists, they face another challenge, explaining how it ended up so far from the Sun. At such distances, the protoplanetary disk of dust and gas was likely to have been too thin to fuel planet growth. And even if Planet X did get a foothold as a planetesimal, it would have moved too slowly in its vast lazy orbit to hoover up enough material to become a giant. Instead, Badigan and Brown propose that Planet X or Planet 9 formed much closer to the Sun, alongside Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. Computer models have shown that the early solar system was a tumultuous billiards table with dozens or even hundreds of planetary building blocks the size of Earth bouncing around. Another embryonic giant planet could easily have formed there, only to be booted outwards by a gravitational kick from another gas giant. It's hard to explain why Planet X did either loop back around to where it started or leave the solar system entirely, but Badigan says that residual gas in the protoplanetary disk might have exerted enough drag to slow the planet just enough for it to settle into a distant orbit and remain in the solar system. That could have happened if the ejection took place when the solar system was between 3 million and 10 million years old, he says, before all the gas in the disk was lost into space. Hal Levinson, a planetary dynamicist at the Southwest Research Institute in Boulder, Colorado, agrees that something has to be creating the orbital alignment Badigan and Brown have detected. But he says the origin story they have developed for Planet X and their special pleading for a gas-slowed ejection add up to a low probability event, he says. Other researchers are more positive. The proposed scenario is plausible, Lawland says. Usually things like this are wrong, but I'm really excited about this one. He says it's better than a coin flip. This all means that Planet 9, Planet X, will remain in limbo until it's actually found. Astronomers have some good ideas about where to look, but spotting the new planet won't be easy because objects in highly elliptical orbits move faster when they're closer to the Sun. Planet X spends very little time at 200 AU. If it were there right now, Brown says, it would be so bright that astronomers probably would have already spotted it. Instead, Planet X is likely to spend most of its time near aphelion, slowly trotting along at distances between 600 and 1,200 AU. Most telescopes capable of seeking a dim object at that distance, such as Hubble Space Telescope or the 10-meter Keck telescopes in Hawaii, have extremely tiny fields of view, and it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack by peering through a drinking straw. One telescope can help. The Subaru, an 8-meter telescope in Hawaii, that's owned by Japan. It has enough light gathering area to detect such a faint object, coupled with a huge field of view, 75 times larger than that of the Keck telescope. So that allows astronomers to scan large swaths of the sky each night. Badigan and Brown are using Subaru to look for Planet X, Planet 9, and they are coordinating their efforts with their erstwhile competitors, Shepard and Trujillo, who have also joined the hunt with Subaru. Brown says it will take years for the two teams to search most of the area where Planet X could be lurking. So if the search pans out, what should the new member of the Sun's family be called? Brown says it's too early to worry about and scrupulously avoid offering up suggestions. For now, he and Badigan are calling it Planet 9, and for the past year, informally Planet Fati, 1990 slang for cool. Brown notes that neither Uranus nor Neptune, the two planets discovered in modern times, ended up being named by their discoverers, and he thinks that that's probably a good thing. It's better than any one person, he says. It's kind of like finding a new continent on Earth. So he is sure, however, that Planet X, unlike Pluto, deserves to be called a planet, something that the size of Neptune in the solar system. Don't even ask, no one would argue this one, not even me. So this is quite a few details on what is out there. Obviously something is perturbing those objects at the edge. This is by Eric Hand, Science Mag on Embedded Reality. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support.